Hello everyone, welcome to this video on responding to mass casualty event as to what will you do in case of an catastrophic incident that might happen. So let us understand how will you respond. The agenda is very simple. We need to understand the rationale, the elements and the actions for performing mass casualty triage. We would love to discuss every possible hazards, scalable results, management approach under potentially hazardous and stressful and resource constrained circumstances. Remember, even if you are well off in your and probably this particular incident might have happened in our developed economy where the facilities are up to the mark, first class facility. But believe me or not, during crisis, during emergency, or perhaps for uncatastrophic, unspecified disaster that happen, everything goes under doldrum. Probably the resources might still be available, but the way you decide, the way you utilize becomes a mismatch, and it might result in detrimental impact. So let us understand all possible hazards, all possible scenario, all possible scalability, and even in the worst circumstances of resource constrained circumstances. So we will discuss the concept principles of mass fatality management in case of there are many demises happening for the health professional in disaster or public health services, and probably understand what are the ethics and professionalism that one needs to display during such processes. Thereby, remember, this is a scenario of a disaster. The idea is to do best for the maximum possible number of people, and that is what we should be going around it. When disaster strike, save the maximum number of lives. That should be the utmost motto around here. Maximum beneficial to maximum number of people that can come across it. So let us understand the background. We can have day-to-day emergencies, and then there are those catastrophic events which we cannot predict or which we have not accounted for. So in day-to-day emergency, the greatest good for each individual patients, each individual victims. Lastly, in disaster, the greatest good for the greatest number of potential survivors is that what we are looking forward to. So, general principle of casualty triage, what are the first threat is the most seriously injured, grievously injured, and who have reasonable possibilities of survival if the first aid reaches them, if the medical intervention is done on an immediate basis. Let us give them the first priority. Let us assess them. Let us take them into our consideration. So these are to be treated for the first on a first priority basis. The second one are who had little less severe illness or injuries. Perhaps they can be deferred. Their treatment can be deferred by a few hours, perhaps. That's what we want to go around it. And the other one will be the separate, those who require minimal or no treatment. In this case, these are the people who can manage themselves by all by themselves. They are very much conscious, they are very much aware of what has actually happened. Probably in the process might have got hurt, but still manageable. So, general principle of mass casualty. Mass casualty strategy is the systematic method, organizations of casualties, and occurs at the scene. What is happening out there? So these are the triages. Systematic method, first and foremost thing, priorities, as I told you to you. The organization of casualties, as in who has to be treated immediately and whose treatment can be deferred by a period and a considerable period and occurs at the scene. Mass casualty tries decision making encompasses the presence of life, the presence of any of the limbs that we talk around here, presence of vision, the presence of hearing, availability of life saving intervention, and availability of transportation asset thereby. So, the mass casualty triage, what are they? We can have a helicopter probably picking up as an care flight. It can be home rush, it can be jump start, it can be military trials. The interventions of the army could have taken places. The pediatric trials tape, the salt trials. This is something which I would love to discuss around here in today's session, because this becomes much more relevant altogether. The simple stride and rapid rapid treatment. Remember, for the triad pass of ST, HT stand for simple triage. This is what we are talking about. And ART again is and rapid treatment. These are the short form of the salt triage and the start triage, the simple triage and the rapid treatment, and the triage sieve thereby. So mass casualty triage system, probably if we want to take the most advanced of economies as a role model, the US is moving toward national standardizations of mass casualty trials. If and when there is a mass casualty in numbers of hundreds, then probably what have been done? The intervention has been taken by the federal agencies, interagency committee on emergency management system, as the case might be, is implemented on a model uniform score criteria and the national standard for mass casualty triage. SALT triage meets the MUCC. Remember, MUCC is Model Uniform Core Criteria, as the case might be. So all agencies should use MUCC compliant triage, which will be interoperable with SALT. Let me focus on SALT. What has been SALT is all about it. SALT is S stands for sorting, A for assessing, L for life saving, and T for treatment. Again, I repeat, sorting, assessing, life saving, and treatment. The acronym for SALT is all about it. It's based on the scientific evidence. First, you sort out, prioritize who requires immediate treatment, who requires a deferred treatment, who can be categorized, and what kind of medical interventions is available with you. Remember, even if there are severe medical emergencies, but interventions are not available. Now, how do you prioritize? So it automatically gets pushed to the second priority. So you need to understand how sorting has to be done, what is assessing all about it, life-saving interventions, and treatment thereby. Remember, step number one for salt is what we are talking about in global salting is concerned. It's first assessing is life threatening, so you have to treat. Probably which is not life threatening, you can assess at the second level. Somebody who can walk, somebody is conscious about, you can rate it or assess as a third level thing. So this is the first sort thing. Next is all about the step of assessing. Now this is individual assessment as to how weak, strong built a person is made up of. Then comes the life-saving intervention, LSI, the sort, the step number three. If we are going to go around the step number three of life-saving interventions, what are we looking out here? It is controlling the major hemorrhages, as in blood flow. Open airway, if it is child, considered to rescue breath. Chest decompression, if there is a heart attack or there is a cardiovascular arrest, what you got to do around it. Auto injector antidotes, as an antibiotic, what we are talking about it. If after intervention, if the person or the victim is not breathing, he's considered to be dead. But in case if the victim responds, what do you go? You need to understand how conscious he is. Does he or she responds to simple commands, simple instruction? What are the peripheral pulses? Is the respiratory normal or abnormal, perhaps? Whether the hemorrhages or blood flow is in control or not. If no, again, you need to understand the likelihood of the survivor. It can relate back to the unwanted outcome, which is being leads to death. But if it is yes, minor injuries, delayed or minimal, is what we are going to do about it. So this is the step number four, calling about treatment. That is what we said. So salt is sorting, A for assessing, L for life-saving intervention, and T for treatment, as the assumption says, which I've elaborated out now in front of you for you to understand altogether. Sorting is all about walking. Sorry, assessing first would be life-threatening. If there are things can be deferred around it, if people are responding and the injury is not grievous enough, sorted assessment number three, and people who are responding constructively can be placed at the third level. Life-saving interventions I've already explained to you in depth as what is all about it. Where the interventions, here we take those the interventions, the major blood flow, the major shock, the major heartbeat, what you go around it. After the intervention, what kind of results it outputs. If there are no responses, it means there's a demise. If there is a responses, you need to check for the second level of intervention that comes around it. Again, which is supposed to lead to a positive result as in this way, or a negative result which might be the other way around, and so on and so forth. So life-saving intervention is most important. Now, individual assessment as a first responder or first caregiver, what can you do? Can you control the flow of blood? Can you open the airways, decompress the chest, or inject antibiotic? That is what we should be looking forward to. This is where we need to understand whether the person is breathing or not. Once you have done so, whether you have given an antibiotic, whether the blood flow has been stopped, now is the second level of interventions if the person is responding or not. This is what you need to understand. Now you need to tell whether they respond to instructions, they respond to a peripheral pulses are abrupt or absolutely going by normal. There is the breath, is it more than 30 breaths per minute or is it less than 30 breaths per minute? The bleeding is stopped or not is something which you need to figure it out. We'll talk about the triage categories, and this is a band that can be attached to the victim, possibly the red band, the yellow band, the green band, the gray band, and the black band, which will tell you what kind of intervention is required. In case if it is a red, it is an immediate intervention required. For yellow, it will be delayed. For green, probably medical intervention is required, but on a minimal level. The gray one is an expected level. If medical intervention is there, it's okay. Otherwise, done with. It is not required. But if it is dead, the black one, you just cannot help it. God bless the soul. And that is what we call it IDME, goal of disaster triage. Do the greatest good for the greatest number of survivors. So highest priority of the casualties are received to immediate life-threatening decisions, requires immediate interventions, requires life-saving responses. You need to come up with positive result and try to come up with positive result. Otherwise, it is the unwarranted thing, that outcomes that we all are afraid of. Requires prompt medical attention. If it is a yellow band, now what we are called, this is a the person is injured probably, but not grievously. That this can be delayed to a certain extent, expected to survive over a period, over a short delay. Response to life-saving interventions, and probably yes, well and good, probably no, needs further interrogation. The minimal thing, the green brand is minor injuries, minor illness, minor medical intervention required. So expected to survive even if medical treatment not received as on time. Probably response to the life-saving interventions, thereby expected casualty of low probability of survival. Not expected to survive given the available medical responses. Probably yes, your intervention medicines are not there, but probably with the blessing of the Almighty and probably with the right attitude, this victim can come up with a miracle. But in normal cases, probably this is where you need to understand that the unwarranted outcome might come, which is the black band, which represent the victim has bygone. So casualties are complete without the absence of life, not breathing enough, no airway opening maneuvers, including two rescue breaths if a child attempt for a basic life-sustaining activities that needs to be taken. It is important not to move dead casualties unless the remains are blocking access to the life casualties. Trash categories are what? We have already said about those bands of red band, which will be immediate requirements. Delayed is the yellow band, the green band, probably minimal. The expected band is somewhere down the corner. You know what the reasons are all about it, but the requisite interventions supplies in terms of medicines, other operations are not possible within the vicinity. So it's little chances of survival, and dead is somewhere you cannot do it. It is already beyond your limits. So tax casualty documentation is what we are looking into it. Communicating findings. The moment you see a tag, you will be able to understand price tag, category assignments, category change, and victim tracking or patient tracking, by the way. Mass casualty triad are both dynamic and continuous. Remember, this is something which we need to go around it. This is the only two-way street that comes around here. Probably this is is also a two-way street, but what happens with this streak is the chances of survival is approximately 90% out in this case, where the chances of survival out here is somewhere down the corner 10%. So that is what needs to be understood if proper interventions are available done. Triage is both dynamic, continuous, primary triages, secondary triages, and tertiary triages. We have focused on the primary triages, and the color can change it, the patient can change it the other way around as the cases comes around it. This is a continuous process. People can improve, and usually they gets improved with the right intervention. Casualties must be prioritized. That is one thing which I would love to go around it now. Prioritize, and accordingly they should be helipadded or helicopter, utilize helicopter to remove them to a medical facilities from the catastrophic zone or the disaster zone. Remember to avoid overwhelming hospitals. Remember that is where the resources are maximum strained. When I talk of resources, I'm not only talk about medicines and operation theaters, but also about the medical professionals out there. Transport stable patients to more distant hospital and treatment facility, whereas treat minor injuries and releases from the scenario in the scene as the case might be. Casualty reporting is what we go around here every now and then. Tracking officers must ensure everyone is accounted for, everyone is been tagged for. System can range from electronic system to a manual system. Just important is to know the footprint, the flow of patient or victims from which area to which hospital, from which hospital to which family it has been communicated, and how they have been discharged. Allow for more information to be added as the system becomes available with the passage of time. Now, then comes the generally performed by specialized team is the remains. What do we go about examining the remains? Moving the deceased to the morgues, maintaining custody of the bodies until release, determining the reporting causes of death, returning personal items to family members. We talk about making final disposition decision for the bodies, issuing of the death certificate as on when on basis. There might be insurance claims, there might be so many things that the government needs to be accounting for, as in what has been done to the deceased person. These are things that needs to be taken into consideration. Professionalism in ethics is what we are looking into. Is probably what we say is never leave the health practices, established health practices. Clinical decision making can only be done when there is normalcy in the flow of victim, but during mass casualty, this is not possible. So maintain a stoic balance between professionalism and personal care. Never get emotional. Challenging ethical dilemmas in case where you think that the person under normal circumstances would have been saved, but because of the dire situation and shortage of requisite interventions facility, it becomes a bit challenging. Now, this is a dilemma for the medical professionals out there, and they have to come up with a star decisions making per se, and that is what we need to go across with it. So, as a summary, what do we go? Mass casualty event occurs when a number of victims overwhelms resources. Change perspective to the greatest good to the greatest number, and that is what we are all interested in. Initial goal of mass casualty is to sort, assess casualties, identify with life-threatening diseases, and initiated life-saving treatment. Mass fatalities will complicate mass casualties events and may require specialized resources and handling. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. I hope everybody understand how do we need to react as far as medical professional is concerned during a mass casualty event. Thank you for watching this event till the end.